Good day, grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's geography lesson. My name is Nomthandazo Malembe. This lesson is brought to you by the Northern Cape Department of Education in collaboration with Pagama Research and Development. So today, learners, we are still focusing on our paper 2 revision. So today we're going to look at your urban settlement. By now, you should be aware that your urban settlement will be your question 2. So, but before we start with our lesson, I just want us to go through our lesson objective. By the end of this lesson, learners, you should be able to unpack the following topics. We're going to look at the concept of the urban settlement. We will be looking at the models of urban structure. We're going to look at the urban decay. Remember, sometimes it is called your transition. We're going to look at your decentralization as well as your street pattern. Then lastly, we will be looking at your informal settlement. Then we're going to go through breaking down the questions for your paper 2. Your paper 2 is based on settlement geography. Remember, settlement geography is separated in 2 ways. You have your rural settlement and you have your urban settlement. So in your question 1, you should expect all the questions based on your rural settlement. What topic you should expect? You should expect a topic such as your settlement types. You can have there as plus or minus 15 marks. Also, you should expect questions such as your settlement patterns as well as your settlement shape. Remember, there's a difference between a pattern as well as a shape. Then thirdly, you should expect questions such as your settlement functions, and also we'll be looking at your land reform policies plus or minus 15 marks again, and then you will be looking at your rural settlement issues plus or minus 15 marks again. So for your question 1, you will have a total of 60 marks. Then we're moving to our question 2. Our question 2 is where you're going to expect your urban settlement. Hence, we'll be focusing on our urban settlement today. So it is question 2. So under question 2, you should expect questions such as your ranking of settlement. Then secondly, we're looking at the urban settlement function. We're going to look at your urban concept. And then number 4, we're looking at the land use zone. And then we're looking at your models of urban structures. We'll also be looking at your urban settlement issues. And then lastly, we'll be looking at your informal settlement. Remember, in all of these topics, the examiner can choose 5 topics, but now you're supposed to prepare yourself in everything because you don't know the question paper. Then again, for your question 2, you will have the total of 60 marks. Then you move to your question 3. In your question 3, you will be expecting your map work questions. So under your map work questions, again, it will be differentiated into 3. Number 1, you will have your map skills as well as your calculation. All these 2, they will give you 10 marks. Then secondly, which is your figure 3.2, you will have your map interpretation. Remember what you are interpreting, the map as well as the theory part. So your map interpretation, it has 12 marks. Then lastly, as your figure 3.3, you will have your GIS questions. Your GIS questions will give you the total of 8 marks. Then altogether, question 3, it will have 30 marks. Then the overall of your question paper is 150. So as we've said today that we are focusing on paper 2, which is your question 2. So we're still going to do the breakdown of questions now. So you are aware that you have your question 1, your question 2, as well as your question 3. Remember, you're supposed to be familiar with the structure of the question paper so that you make sure even when you are writing that you don't miss any questions. So each and every question, could it be it's question 1 or it's question 2? You will have, or it will consist of 5 figures. You have your figure 1.1 as well as 1.2. In your figure 1.1 and 1.2, it's where you will expect your short objective questions. Those short objective questions, you might get them as a multiple choice. You might get them as a column A or column B, or whereby you need to choose the correct answer from the brackets. So if figure 1.1 or 1.2, it has 7 marks. So your figure 1.2 will have 8 marks, but the total, it will be 15 marks. Thereafter, each question, you're supposed to answer 3 questions or 3 figures with medium as well as long questions. So next, you will have your figure 1.3 to 1.5, whereby you should expect your medium as well as your long questions. When we're talking about the long questions, we're talking about your 3 times 2 questions as well as your paragraph question, which is your 4 times 2. Remember, this applies in question 1 as well as question 2. So same thing applies in question 2. You will have your figure 2.1 and 2.2 with the short questions, and then your figure 2.3 to figure 2.5, you will have your medium as well as your long questions. Remember, each and every question from question 1.3 to 1.5, you will have the total of 15 marks, so that you can have that 60 marks per question. Then again, in your question 2, figure 2.1 as well as 2.2, as they are combined, they will give you 15 marks. And then after that, your 2.3, 2.4, 2.5 will give you 15 marks each. Then you will have a total of 60 marks. Then you move to your question 3. In your question 3, it's a different story. You have your map work. Under your map work, the total is 30 marks. The breakdown, remember, it's 10 marks for map skills as well as calculation, and then it's 12 marks for map interpretation and 8 marks for GIS. Then you will have the overall of 150 marks. Then we're going to look at our first question. We're looking at the concept of urbanization. So when you're talking about the concept of urbanization, you will remember when we're still studying that we have the concept like your urbanization. When people are moving into the urban area, then from there they will keep on growing, so we can have your urban growth. And then afterwards, as people keep on increasing, so as the buildings will increase, then you will have your concept like your urban expansion. And then there will be those ones because people will be coming in numbers from the rural areas and up to the other countries. So therefore, it will then lead into the shortage of land or the shortage of services, where now people will be taking land and build their settlement. Then it will be able to create what we call your urban sprawl. So when you're talking about your urban, your concept of urbanization, you should think of those concept. Then also we're looking at the level at which the urbanization is growing, and we're looking at the percentage. So as these are now becoming a problem in the urban areas, we need to look at the solutions. Remember the solutions we said we're talking about counter urbanization, when people are now moving back to the rural areas. But let us see what questions do we have. So number 1, you choose the correct words. Remember, each and every question or each and every figure, it will have the instruction. Beside the instruction that you will get in page 2, you also need to read before you answer. What are they saying in that figure or in that question? For instance, on this one, they are telling us to choose the word from the given bracket. So as you are choosing the word, you should choose the word that will make the statement to be geographically correct. So your 1.1.1 is the urban expansion or urbanization. Remember, both of them, they are under the concept of urbanization. So now you need to refer to the meaning as to which one are you choosing. Is it an urban expansion or urbanization? So we're looking at it refers to the increase in the percentage of people who are living in the urban areas. Then secondly, we're looking at the urban growth as well as your rate of urbanization. Again, both of them, they are under the concept of urbanization. So what are they saying? It refers to the pace, so that's the key, which is the pace at which the urbanization is taking place. Is that a growth or is that the rate? Then your 1.1.3, you're looking at the low order or the high order. So now these are based on the settlement function, your urban settlement functions. So low order or high order services are required. We're talking about the services that are required on a daily basis. Then your 1.1.4, the maximum distance a customer is willing to travel to purchase goods. Is it a threshold population or is it a range of goods? Again, this is the functions of the urban settlement. Then you have 4 questions at the moment, which means I'm going to give you 1 minute per question. So in total, you will have 4 minutes to answer these questions. And then after 4 minutes, we will be able to do our corrections and then move to the next questions. So your 4 minutes starts now. Right? Looking there at our next questions, you have your question 1.1.5 to question 1.1.8. So realize that the first 8 questions, they have 8 questions which are short. So what does it mean? It means in our next activity or in our next questions, you will have 7 questions. Remember, for your short objective questions, you're supposed to have 15 in total. So your 1.1.5, it says the overcrowding. So we are talking of the overcrowding. By now you understand what is overcrowding. Is a result of an urban, is it a growth or is it expansion? Then your 1.1.6, the percentage of the number of people living in rural areas. We're talking of the percentage. Is it a level of urbanization or is it urban population? Then your 1.1.7, developed countries have, remember in grade 9, you were taught about the difference between a developed as well as a developing country. So developed countries have a high or a low rate of urbanization. So the key is to understand what type of a country is a developed country. Then your 1.1.8, the towns that develop at important intersection. So remember now it is taking us to the types of towns. Then the towns that develop at an important intersection. Important intersection, is it a junction or is it a commuter town? So again, you have another 4 questions displayed, which means you will have again 4 minutes, and then after 4 minutes, we will be able to proceed to the corrections. Right? I hope we're all ready for the corrections and we have wrote down your answers so that you can be able to mark yourself as we are doing the corrections. So the first question, your 1.1.1, whereby you are supposed to choose between the urban expansion as well as urbanization. We're talking about the increase in the percentage of people who are living in the urban areas. So here we're talking about the urbanization. Remember, urban expansion is talk about the increase in the number of people as well as in the buildings. So therefore, here they only talk about the people. Hence, the answer is urbanization. Then your 1.1.2, the urban growth or the rate of urbanization refers to the pace. So the pace, it was our key. The pace, it is to do with the rate. Then your 1.1.3, the low order or a high order services are required on a daily basis. Remember, those are them, your services like your bread, your milk that we buy every day and that we cannot travel for them. So that makes it to be a low order because they are found locally. Then your 1.1.4, the maximum distance a customer is willing to travel. Remember, we are talking about the range of goods there. So the range will make it to be our answer because the question is talking about the traveling. Then your 1.1.5, we're talking about the overcrowding. Overcrowding is a result of your urban growth. Remember, we are given urban growth as well as your urban expansion. By now, I did explain that expansion, it consists of the buildings as well as the population. So hence, it is the urban growth that is leading to overcrowding, because it is talking about the population or the people only. Then your 1.1.6, the percentage of the urban, the percentage of the number of people living in the urban areas. We're talking about the level of urbanization. Remember, you should master this by the percentage of the number of people. Then you think of the level that you want to achieve in geography. So here, it will give you an answer, which is the level of urbanization, because we are talking about the percentage. Then your 1.1.7, developed countries, they have a low rate of urbanization. Why? Because developed countries, remember, these are the countries that are rich and that they are doing well. So therefore, there is no need for people to move into urban areas because the country is doing well. So hence, they have the low rate of urbanization. Then your 1.1.8, the towns that develop at important intersection. So remember the key there, it was an intersection. So it makes to be a junction. Then we're moving to the next questions. Our next question is based on the models of urban structure. So in the models of urban structure, we are given a refer to figure 1.2. The model is showing the models of urban structure. Then you choose the correct answer from the options that are given in the bracket to make the statement to be true. So if we may go through our a diagram or our figure 1.2, we have the models of the urban structure. Remember, we've got 3 models of urban structure. Number 1, we have the concentric zone model. Remember the concentric zone model, they follow each other, or they like in a circular pattern. Remember, this was the model that was emphasizing, or that was more on the flat buildings. And then as the population keep on increasing, or the urban growth is created, then we moved into the sector models. Then again, remember all these models, we have chosen them from the third world. Then your sector model, now it is introducing the tall buildings. So hence you can see there is number 1 there in our key, it's a CBD. So remember, the only thing that changes is the structure, but we still have the very same key, except for the concentric zone model, because we have until number 5. Then with the sector model, as well as your multiple nuclei, the location of the land use zone, they are still the same, but it's only the structure that has changed. But one thing that you notice, your CBD is always at the center. So here you can see, even on the concentric, the CBD is number 1 there at the center. Then you're looking at your sector model, the CBD is number 1 at the center again. Then you're also looking at your multiple nuclei, your number 1 is also at the center. So we have the key. The key is supposed to remind you what is the zone, or what is the location of that land. How do they utilize that land? So we're looking at number 1, we have your CBD. Then number 2, we have your wholesale or light manufacturing. Remember, they are next to the CBD because of the light manufacturing. They are less, or there is no pollution at all. So hence they are located next to the CBD. Then we have our number 3, which is our low income residential. Remember, low income residential will always be next to the wholesale or the light manufacturing. Remember, these are the people who are earning less, or they want to be closer to work in order to save on the transport cost. Then number 4, we'll have our middle income residents. So here they are following each other in the concentric zone model, but you're looking at the sector now because there is tall buildings that were introduced. You're looking at the position of number 4 now, which is your middle income. Then number 5, you're looking at your high income residential. And then your number 6, you will have your heavy manufacturing. Remember the heavy manufacturing, then again, you're going to see them clearly at the multiple nuclear, because now these are where they are located. So they are outside of the urban, or we are saying they are on the outskirts. Why? Because they require the large area and they are high on pollution. Then number 7, we're looking at the outlying business districts. Remember these, we said it's the OBD. Remember now, you can have the questions whereby you need to compare between the CBD, which is the central, as well as the OBD, which is the outlying. There are reasons why now there is an outlying, because in those areas on the outlying, there is an availability of space and the land is cheaper as compared to your CBD. Then we have our residential area at number 8, and then we have our industrial area at number 9, and lastly, our commuter zone. So remember, these are from our structure of the urban models. Then let us look at what questions do we have. So again, the instruction, it says we need to choose one answer that will make the statement to be correct. So what does it mean? You read the statement, then you underline the keyword so that you can be able to make your choice. Like for instance, number 1, your 1.2.1, the model which shows the land use arranged in wedges. So the wedges now is the key. Which model shows the land that is arranged arranged in wedges is known as, is it a multiple nuclear or is it a sector? Again, you look at the structure, or you look at these models, which one it has arranged in the wedges. Then secondly, in the multiple nuclear or concentric zone model, the CBD is a focal point around which the urban area develops. So which one is the focal point? When we're talking about the focal point, what are we talking about? Is it a multiple nuclear or is it a concentric zone? So now you're looking at the concentric and you're looking at the multiple nuclear. Then your 1.2.3, the industries and low-cost housing develop along the main roads or the railway. In where? Is it a concentric zone or in the sector models? Again, you're going to look at the concentric, then you're looking at the sector. Then you see on which model are the industries as well as the low-cost housing develop along the main road as well as the railway. So you have 3 questions. I'm going to give you 3 minutes, and then after 3 minutes, we will proceed to the next questions. Right? I believe we are all done. So let us carry on with our next questions. You have your question 1.2.4 up to question 1.2.7. So what happened? 1.2.4, the sector or the multiple nuclear model is most applicable in modern cities. So again, you're going to compare the sector as well as the multiple nuclear. Then you realize which one is most applicable in the modern cities. Then your 1.2.5, the sector or the concentric zone. So we're looking at the sector and the concentric zone model does not consider development along transport routes. So which one that does not consider the development along the transport routes? Then your 1.2.6, the cities that have a several focal point. So several focal points around which urban development occurs. Are example of, is it a concentric or a multiple nuclear? Again, you're looking at the 2, which is the concentric as well as the multiple nuclear. Then last question is 1.2.7. The sector or multiple nuclear models display the characteristic of the concentric zone model. So which one between the 2 that display the characteristic of the concentric a zone model. So I'm going to give you 4 minutes to answer these questions, and then after 4 minutes, we will be able to proceed with our corrections. Right? Grade 12, I hope we're still together. So looking at our first question there, the models, which shows the land use arranged in wedges. Remember the key, it was the wedges there. So we're looking at the sector because we are given the multiple nuclei as well as the sector. So the wedges, you can see this is the piece and this is the piece and then another one. So we call these the wedges. So hence our answer is a sector. Then your 1.2.2, in the multiple nuclear or concentric zone model, the CBD is the focal point around which the urban area develops. Remember the focal point, it means it is in circular. So on which one is the concentric? So hence our answer is concentric because we're looking at which one it is making round or it is circular. Then your 1.2.3, the industries and the low-cost housing develop along the main road, which is, or the railway, it's the sector. So as you can see there, between the concentric, it is a focal point or it is circular. So which one they develop along the roads as well as the railway, it's the sector because of the wedges. Then your 1.2.4, the sector or the multiple nuclear model is the most applicable, which one is mostly used in the modern cities. So because the modern cities, they have more of the resources, these are the cities that will also have your OBD, your residential area, your industrial areas, as well as your commuter zone. So it is a multiple nuclear. Then your 1.2.5, the sector or the concentric zone model does not consider the development along transport routes. It's your concentric. Why? Because they are at the focal point or they are at the circular, so they does not consider the development along the transport routes. Then your 1.2.6, the cities that have a several focal point. So we call these the focal points around which the urban development occurs is an example of your multiple nuclei. Why? Because there are so many focal points that are included. Then your 1.2.7, the sector or the multiple nuclear model displays the characteristics of the concentric zone model. So the characteristic, we still have that shape like a circular. So even though it has the wedges, so it is a sector. Then by now you have your 15 marks. As 8 marks from the first activity and then 7 marks from the second activity. It could be question 2.1 as well as your question 2.2 when it comes to your exam. Then we're moving right along. We're going to look at your urban decay. So here you refer to the picture showing the urban decay and you answer the following question. So by now, the urban decay, you're supposed to understand that we're talking about your urban blight. We're talking about the transition zone. So urban decay, mostly looking at the picture, remember the characteristic, we are saying it's the old buildings and it's the buildings where there is a lack of service and it's the buildings that are abandoned. So we're looking there at the pictures, we can see that these are the buildings that are not taken care of. We're looking at the trees outside. We're looking at the old building that is not taken care of in this one. We're looking at the lack of services. You see there's a potholes in the road. We're looking even at the electricity and wires. So all these are the characteristics of the urban decay or the buildings that are old or your transition zone. So let us look what questions do we have. So you refer to the picture showing the urban decay and you answer the following question. So here we have question 1.3.1 up to 1.3.5. The first one, you need to define the term urban decay. Remember now we are in our medium as well as our long question. So hence it will start by defining what is that you see in the picture. They've already told that it is showing an urban decay. So by now you're supposed to have an understanding. What is our urban decay? Remember all our definition, it is now 2 marks. Then secondly, you give the other name of the urban decay. So by now you're supposed to know the answer because I've been saying as we're still analyzing what we see on the picture. Then your 1.3.3, the two indicators of the urban decay in the picture. Again, it's supposed to be easy because we have identified as we're analyzing the picture. So again, that's another strategy. As you get the diagram, analyze it first. What do you see in that diagram? By analyzing, you find that some of the questions you have already answered. Then your 1.3.4, you explain the two factors which may have contributed to the urban decay in the picture. So now, the two factors you explain. Remember, you don't have to write one word or two, it because buildings old. So you need to explain, further explain what are the factors that have contributed to the urban decay in the picture. 2 times 2. Then your 1.3.5, you explain how urban renewal. Remember urban decay, we said we are talking about the old buildings. So therefore, the urban renewal will be more applicable in these buildings, which are urban decay. So you explain how the urban renewal will help to solve the problem of urban decay. 3 times 2. 3 times 2, it means you need to give 3 answers so that you can get these 6 marks. So again, it starts by understanding what is the urban decay. If you don't understand what is urban decay, so surely all these questions, it will be difficult for you to answer. And by then you will be losing the whole 15 marks. So it is important that you understand all the content. So because you have that a long question, which is your 3 times 2, I'm going to give you 10 minutes to work on these 5 questions. And then after 10 minutes, we will be able to discuss our corrections. Right? Looking there at our first question, I hope we are all done and ready for the correction. So let us go through on how do we define our urban decay. Remember, there are so many ways you can use. We said these are the abandoned buildings or these are the old buildings that are not taken care of. So in our answers, we have included that when a part of a city, because the urban decay, again, it is found inside the CBD, which is the cities. So when the part of the city or a specific area starts to fall into the decrepitude, due to the neglect, that's number 1, as well as the crime, as well as the lack of economic support. So why there is a crime? Because those buildings are not taken care of. Why there is lack of economic support? Remember we said because these buildings, they are abandoned. So therefore, hence the services also, they will be lacking. Then your 1.3.2, you give the other name for the urban decay. We call it an urban blight. Even those ones we have said the transition zone, it is still correct because it is also referring to your urban decay. Then your 1.3.3, you name 2 indicators of urban decay in the picture. Maybe sometimes the question might say, give characteristic of the urban decay. So in this one, they said name 2 indicators. Indicators, it is still referring to the characteristic. So dilapidated building. Remember, dilapidated building, we're talking about the old building. The environmental pollution, as you can see there are trees outside that are not trimmed. You're looking at the roads, we're looking at the power line, which is closer, that's displaying the environmental pollution. Then we're looking also at the high rate of unemployment. It's also an indicator because the place can never be old or dilapidated if the people who are using that place are working. Then we're looking at our question 1.3.4, whereby you are supposed to explain the two factors which may have contributed to the urban decay in the picture. So we have talked about the decentralization. Remember decentralization, we're talking about the industries that have been moved or they have moved into the other areas, more especially in the rural areas, so that they can develop those undeveloped areas. So decentralization of businesses and industries, they have left the buildings empty and unattended. So therefore, if the businesses are moving away, the people also might be interested to move with them because they need employment and also they don't want to travel a long distance. So therefore, they move with them. So as they move, they're going to leave these buildings unattended. No municipal services because of lack of payment. Remember, the statement was saying explain. Hence, we did not just say decentralization because decentralization, you haven't explained what decentralization will contribute in terms of the urban decay. Then we're looking at our second point. We have chosen no municipal services because of the lack of payment by the resident for these services. Remember, as they move, or as they abandon these buildings. So it means now they are not going to pay for the services. So as they are not going to pay for the services, it will also mean now the municipal is not receiving any income. So therefore, it will be difficult or they will not be able to provide the services. Then we're looking at the increase of migrants into the area. It put a lot of pressure on the infrastructure. So we're talking about the people who are coming from, especially other countries. So in the infrastructure, like your housing, remember housing is also an infrastructure. We're not only talking about the road, also the buildings, it's an infrastructure. And it will also lead into overcrowding. And then rural urban migration, because the urban decay also is because the people, they are moving from the rural area to the urban areas, so in search for the better opportunities. Then as soon as they don't find any employment and there are these buildings that are abandoned, they will also occupy those buildings. So rural urban migration is also a factor. Then we're looking at our question 1.3.5. You explain how the urban renewal will help to solve the problems in the urban decay. Urban renewal, we're talking about renewing these buildings, but now how is it going to solve? So the high income adults will move into the area. So if now this area has been renewed, it is now beautiful. It will also attract the people who have the high income to come and stay in the area because now it will be renewed and it will be beautiful. So as it attracts these people who have the high income, they will be able to pay for the services in the municipal and the municipal will be able to operate again. So we're looking at also the dilapidated buildings will restored and will be maintained. So if they are restored and it is maintained, it will also bring back the high standard of the area. Then we're looking at the municipal services that will be paid. We've already discussed that. Therefore, the services like water, as well as the electricity and the waste removal and sanitation will be provided because the municipal will be receiving a payment every month. Then we're going to look at our decentralization as well as the street patterns. So here you refer to the infographic. So you are given an infographic, which is the extract as well as the picture. Altogether, they are called infographic because this is where you're going to get the information. And you answer the following questions. So we're looking there at our extract. It's the office space with the major trend to decentralization. Remember, by now we have explained what is decentralization is and what causes decentralization, as well as the strategies or the importance of decentralizing. Then we're looking at the picture. We have picture A and then we have picture B. Then we have the street patterns. We have X and then we have your Y. So in our extract, as we've said, it's the office space, a major trend to decentralization. I thus expect decentralized nodes to continue to be the more popular location option. That's not to say that CBDs don't have an important place, especially in terms of their potential for high density, affordable residential accommodation. But I believe the more decentralized urban businesses model is here to stay. So let us look at what questions do we have. In our first question, you identify the land use zone indicated at A. As you can see there at A. We realize there are tall buildings. So what land use zone? And we're looking at the building density in the infographic. Then secondly, you quote from the infographic the importance of land use zone identified at A. Then again, if the question is saying quote, please do not forget to include the invited commas to indicate that you have a quoted from the infographic or from the extract. Then your 1.4.3, you state one characteristic of the land use zone at A that is evident in the infographic. I've already identified that characteristic. Then your 1.4.4, which street pattern, is it Y, X or Y, is usually associated with the land use zone at A. Remember, if the question is asking which street pattern, X or Y, you do not have to answer by yes. You need to choose, is it an X or is it Y? Then definitely sure the following question will be asking you to give a reason. Why are you saying it is X and why are you saying it is Y? So you have these questions, which are 5 questions that are displayed because your 1.4.4, it has question A as well as your question B. So I'm going to give you 6 minutes to work on these questions. And then after 6 minutes, we will proceed to the next questions. Right? I hope we are done. We are now ready for our question 1.4.5 as well as your 1.4.6. So in your question 1.4.5, you give a term used for the movement of businesses away from the land use zone A towards the suburb. What do we call it? Then in 1.4.6, it's a paragraph question. The paragraph question, again, remember, you're supposed to have the 4 responses. In that, you need to give a fact and you need to explain or you motivate that fact. So 1.4.6, the people and businesses are often forced to move out of land use zone A. We're talking about the people as well as the businesses. In a paragraph of approximately 8 lines, discuss factors that causes businesses to move away from land use zone A. So we are only discussing those factors, what caused them to move. 4 times 2, 4 responses, that will give you 8 marks. So I'm going to give you another 6 minutes because there's a paragraph question, and then after 6 minutes, we will be able to do the corrections. Right? Looking there at our first question, whereby you were supposed to identify the land use zone at A. The land use zone at A is a CBD or it's a central business district in full. Remember, you can still get 1 mark what does CBD stands for. So it is important to familiarize yourself with both. It's a CBD or it's a central business district. Then your 1.4.2, you quote from the infographic the importance of the land use zone identified at A. So remember I said you're supposed to include the inverted commas so that you indicate that we have quoted in terms of their potential for high density affordable residential accommodation. We were quoting in the infographic the importance of the land use zone identified at A, which is the CBD, in terms of their potential for high density affordable residential accommodation, because we're quoting the importance. Then your 1.3.4, you state one characteristic of the land use zone, A, that is evident. Remember the characteristic. We're talking about the tall buildings. What are the things that you identify with in order for you to say this is indeed a CBD? Remember in the CBD, there are tall buildings. Then we're looking at the high building density. The buildings are close to each other. And also we're looking at the high accessibility in terms of the road as well as the railway. That area is accessible. Then we're moving to our question 1.4.4. Question 1.4, which street pattern, is it X or Y, that is usually associated with the land use zone A? So we are looking at the street Y. So why street Y? Because it is a gridiron street pattern. Remember we said X, it's your unplanned or irregular street pattern that is mostly used in the residential areas. Then your Y, which is your gridiron street pattern, is mostly used in the CBD. Then giving a reason, all of the area of the cities, all the areas of the cities, or we are saying it is easy to lay out, or it is easy to construct, or it is easy to subdivide the plots. Because in the CBD, remember, we've got the tall buildings and we've got so many businesses that is happening. So therefore, we need to subdivide those plots. Hence, it is more applicable in the CBD. Then we're looking at our question 1.4.5, whereby you're supposed to give a term that's describe the movement of businesses away from the land use zone. Remember, it is decentralization. So where are they decentralizing to? To the OBD, your out business district. Then we're looking at our question 1.4.6, a paragraph question, whereby you are supposed to discuss the factors that makes the businesses to move away from the CBD. So number one, we're talking about the high crime rate in CBD because it is overcrowded. So therefore, not everyone going that side, he or she is working. So there are those ones who go there to commit crime. Then number two, we're looking at the high levels of competition. We said there is a variety of businesses or stores in that CBD. So therefore, the competition will be high. And also, we're looking at the overcrowding at A. That overcrowding, it also leads into traffic. Remember also, again, it also affects because people will now not be keen in going into that area as they know that they're going to be stuck on traffic. So overcrowding is also one of the things that makes the businesses to move away. Then we're looking at the traffic congestion as well as your poor public transport, which force them to move out on the outskirts. Remember, again, on the outskirts, the land is cheaper and it is more available. So there is too much space. We're talking in terms of the businesses. They will know that their client or their customers will be compatible because there is a lot of space and there is less crime. Then we're looking at our informal settlement. In our informal settlement, it says refer to the extract below on informal settlement. The student teachers share ideas about improving informal settlement in South Africa. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to read your extract on your own. And then after 3 minutes, you'll be able to display the questions. Right? I hope we are all done reading the extract. So we have our question 1.5.1 up to question 1.5.4. In our first question, the informal settlement are located, is it rural or in urban areas, for 1 mark? Then secondly, the informal settlement results in the counter-urbanization or in the urban sprawl. So you need to understand these two concepts. Then number 3, you state one reason why people settle in informal settlement. Then number 4, 1.3.4, you give 2 social injustices that people living in informal settlement are faced with. So 2 informal social injustices. Remember, we have talked about what are the injustices. So just any 2 that the people who are living in this informal settlement are faced with. So I'm going to give you just 4 minutes. Then after 4 minutes, we will be able to move to the next questions. Right, grade 12, I hope we are still together. So looking there at our next question, we have our figure, question 1.5.5 and question 1.5.6. So you describe 2 ways in which the shack dwellers often show their growing discontent. So if you don't understand again what is growing discontent mean, it means unhappiness in South Africa. So we all live in South Africa and we all are aware what ways do these people we call the shack dwellers use. 2 times 2. They said describe. So you are not naming, you need to describe these ways that they use. So number 6, suggest measures government could implement to address the social injustices faced by the people living in the informal settlement. 3 times 2. Remember the last question, you were supposed to give these 2 social injustices. Now you need to give suggestion or the strategies on how the government can address these social injustices that are faced by the people in the informal settlement. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes for these 2 questions, and then after 5 minutes, we will be able to proceed to the corrections. Right? Looking there at our first question, whereby you were supposed to give the location of the informal settlement. Where are they located? They are located in the urban areas. Then again, the informal settlement are the result of your urban sprawl. Remember, urban sprawl, we're talking about the uncontrollable development in the urban areas. Then your 1.5.3, you state one reason why people they settle in the informal settlement. Number 1, most of all is because of poverty as well as your unemployment. So if you are unemployed, obviously you're going to choose these areas because you're going to stay there for free, and the material that they use to build those informal settlement is a cheap or a free material. They take whatever they come across with. Then we're looking at the lack of skills or the high cost housing. You find someone is working, but still he or she is residing or settling in the informal settlement because of the low income he or she is receiving. Then you're supposed to give 2 social injustices that the people in the informal settlement are faced with. We said the buildings, they use the material that is used, they use cheap or free material because they take whatever that they can come across and build their sheds or their houses. So therefore, they are also clustered together. So if they are clustered together, it means now the spread of diseases. It's also a social injustice because they are too close to one another. Then we're looking at the social issues. In terms of the social issues, we're talking about the conditions that they are living in, and then the overcrowding because there are too many in one area. with the lack of a hygiene. We're talking about the lack of basic services. There are no electricity, there are no water, there are no roads in terms of the infrastructure. And then we're looking at the crime. Remember, the people who are in these areas are the people who are unemployed. So obviously they're going to commit crime. So these are any of the two social injustices that are faced by the people who are living in the informal settlement. Then your 1.5.5, you are supposed to describe the two ways in which the shack dwellers are often show their discontent, which means unhappiness in South Africa. So number one is the protest action that turn into violence. They burn tires, they even stone people. There are so many things. It's turned out to be a violence, but it started as a protest because they are showing their unhappiness. It's either to the government or to the municipal. The burning of tires along the road, the blocking of the roads, traffic. Sometimes those ones who are using cars, they will not be able to use their cars on that day, or they will not even be able to reach work because they will be closing the road. Then also the looting, as well as the demand and damaging the businesses as well as the shops. Most of the time, they take these opportunities to protest so that they can be able to steal. Remember, these people, we said they are unemployed, so therefore to them, any opportunity to get used of the goods or the services, then the looting as well as the damaging of businesses, they become the part of their unhappiness. Then the burning down of shacks, because they want is their outcry. They want the government or the municipal to build them their houses. Then we're looking at our suggestion. What a suggestion can the government implement in order to address all these social injustices, your lack of service, your lack of hygiene that we have discussed? So number one, to provide the cheap building material to build houses. We said they are using any material that they come across with, but if they can be provided with a material so that they can build a proper house. Then secondly, the provision of the low-cost housing, the ones that we call the RDP houses. Then we're looking at to provide the basic services to the people. If those people are able to have electricity, are able to have water as well as the roads, so it will become much better for them. Then we're looking at to provide the tar roads with better drainage system. Sometimes these informal settlements are the ones who are vulnerable to the flooding because there are no drainage system at all. Then we're also looking at the provision of the water points, even though maybe the government might fail to give them the running water in their houses, but if they have the water points where they can collect their their water for their houses. Then also the provision of the stormwater drainage, as I've said, that these areas often they are vulnerable to the flooding. Then the provision also of sanitation, because we have talked about the unhygienic in these areas. Then we're going to summarize on what we have learned so far. We have looked into the concept of urban settlement. We have looked into the models of urban structures, your urban decay, decentralization, and street patterns. And then lastly, we have looked into the informal settlement. Then we're going to give you a preview for our next lesson. Our next lesson will be focusing on map work. We're going to look at the map skills, your map calculation, your map interpretation, as well as your GIS questions. So we have come to an end of our lesson today. Hopefully you have enjoyed the lesson, but most of all, I hope you have learned. Thank you and stay tuned for the next lesson.